Hey, welcome to Hannity. Tonight, the White House is puffing out its feathers, trying to convince the world that President Obama is standing up to Russian President Vladimir Putin by canceling next month's bilateral meeting after the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden was granted temporary asylum. But the sad reality is we got to this point because of the poor, careless foreign policy decisions that have been made by the administration. Now, when it comes to our relationship with Russia, the White House has done nothing to roll over and bow down and put Putin and his allies on top of the pyramid here. Let me give you a few examples to prove my point. Who can forget this epic fail when back in 2009, then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton presented the Russian foreign minister with this symbolic gift?
I wanted to present you with a little gift which represents what President Obama and Vice President Biden and I have been saying. And that is, we want to reset our relationship.
Let's do it together.
So we will do it together, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that button. Now, that clearly worked out well for our American interests. Let's not forget, too, when President Obama himself groveled before Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Remember this hot open mic? Take a look.
This is my last election. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and I stand with him.
Now, the bottom line is this. Should it come as a shock to anyone that Russia does not take us seriously? In fact, over the past 5 years, what exactly has this president accomplished? Now, forget about domestically. That list is pretty much non-existent. Abroad, his record is not much better. How dangerous is this? Joining me now with reaction are Senator Ron Johnson and Congressman Steve King. Welcome both of you to the show.
Hello, Sean. How you doing?
Glad to be on. That Russian reset, Senator? How's that Russian button working out so far?
Well, it's been an utter failure. You know, Sean, it'd be nice if Russia and the United States would be friendly rivals, but this relationship, because of weakness, because of the president's policy of leading from behind where we don't have the respect of Russia, and quite honestly, most countries in the world, this has been an utter failure. And we need to recognize this, and we need to move forward with something far more significant than just not, meeting with President Putin. We actually have to start, for example, let's make sure we don't reduce unilaterally our nuclear arsenal by a third. There are a number of things we need to start showing more strength in this world. We need to start leading as America.
Let me ask you, Congressman King, you remember back in 2009, the U.S. unilaterally broke our security agreement, if you remember, with the Czech Republic and Poland at the behest of Russia. What has that gotten us?
I remember the headlines on the Warsaw paper that said one word: betrayed. What it did was it turned the Poland and Czechs learned that if they stand up with the United States, we're not necessarily going to stand with them. It said to Putin and the Russians and Medvedev that we aren't strong, that we aren't bold. When you sit down and negotiate with somebody like Putin, who is former KGB, I would add, you want to have a strong hand and you want to be the dominant personality. Those two things are really important. If they neither fear you nor respect you, it's going to be awfully hard to talk them into letting Snowden come back into the United States in our custody. And it's something you build for a long period of time. Putin looks into the eyes of Barack Obama. If he would understand, if there was a strong personality there, a strong leader, and someone that was willing to put out a strategy, Putin would react to that. But instead, he's pushing back on the United States. I see the hand he's playing, and it's hard for us to hold our image in the world if we let him continue.
Senator, isn't it kind of embarrassing to watch Putin stick it in, poke us in the eye this way after the president bent over backwards, sucked up to him the way he has? It's kind of embarrassing, isn't it?
I think so.
Well,
let's
Sean,
face it, President Obama started his administration.
Senator?
Yeah, let's face it, President Obama started his administration on the apology tour, which, again, he's looking for the love of the world when what we need is respect. We need to show strength. We need to show that we are the world's superpower. We are the world's leader. Then Russia would start respecting us. So what we need to start doing now is we need to start encouraging NATO expansion. We need to beef up our missile defense. We have to recognize that Russia is not a friendly rival. They're moving toward a posture of a hostile rival, and we need to recognize that reality. That's the first thing you have to do in developing a strategy. You have to recognize reality, and I'm afraid this administration is really not recognizing that reality.
Professor Cohn, Elliot Cohn, Congressman, actually said nobody's afraid of this guy. I'd put it a little bit differently. I think the rest of the world sees him as a wimp. Am I wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong on that, Sean. I can't identify a foreign policy that's coming out of this president. And I talk to a lot of people that do nothing but watch foreign policy. They can't identify it either. But we need to be strong economically, as Senator Johnson said. We've got to be strong militarily. We've got to be bold. We've got to be confident. And when you go to the negotiating table, you want to have the strong hand and be the dominant personality. Right now, I think we're none of those things. And that's probably why they pulled out of those G20 meetings that could have happened with Putin, because they don't feel confident in going into that. Now, with just a dominant personality and a weaker hand, you'd still walk into that room and you'd come out of there with something.